Hi, I'm Eric Goldberg. I've been an animator here at Disney Animation since 1990. Amongst the things I've done are I was the supervising animator for the Genie in Aladdin. I co-directed Pocahontas. I animated Louis the Alligator in Princess and the Frog. And most recently, I worked on Moana. And in celebration of Moana's release on Blu-ray tomorrow, I'm going to draw Mini Maui for you. That was my patch. I supervised Mini Maui and then answer some questions. So let's go over to the drawing board. And I like to work roughly first, you know, kind of a light pass. So hopefully you'll be able to see it. One thing I really enjoyed about the Mini Maui character was that John Lasseter said he wanted him to be a little snarky once in a while. He wanted him to be able to give it back to Big Maui once in a while. So that just sounded great, you know. So even though he's kind of like Big Maui's Jiminy Cricket, he's Jiminy Cricket with attitude. And so he had his moments when he could give it back when Big Maui wasn't particularly as honest as he might be. So here, I'm going to put him in one of my favorite poses here, with his legs crossed and grinning back up at Big Maui. Now I'm going to go back and tie it down. His original character designer was Bill Schwab, who was our character designer for the whole show. And they studied tattoo patterns, you know, very thoroughly. And so he designed Mini Maui to actually be very reflective of the same kind of graphics that the Polynesian people would use in their tattoos. When we are actually drawing and animating the character, you can see, of course, I'm doing dark out of light on the, on the paper, dark pencil on light paper. And we drew it that way, but then our cleanup artists had to actually reverse it out and think in negative, because when we went ahead and made him into a tattoo, they'd actually have to color his teeth in black, because they'd reverse it out so that his color, his internal color, was black and his teeth were white. And so they kind of had to think in negative through the entire process of cleaning up Mini Maui, but it seemed to work quite well. There are also a lot of technical things, you know, in order to make it work, but the most fun was really collaborating with the computer animators on this character. And, you know, animation itself is a very collaborative medium. So one thing that was really hugely fun was, say, having one of the CG animators say, "Oh, I think it would be fun to poke Mini Maui in the belly." Big Maui pokes him in the belly in this shot, and I'd go, "Great." And then we would agree on the exact frame number. Say it would be frame 9, you know, where he would animate the CG finger coming in, and I would animate Mini Maui reacting from frame 9. And we would constantly look at each other's work and make sure that it was working. And in fact, the directors, John and Ron, or John Musker and Ron Clements, were very encouraging of this kind of collaboration. They always have been very encouraging guys in terms of getting a good idea from any place. So we would actually go into dailies. That's when, you know, the directors review the animation, and the technical folks figured out a way to make it possible to see both the hand-drawn animation and the CG animation at the same time, so that it was already mapped onto Big Maui's body, and that way we could judge both. And since the two of them had a relationship together, we had to make sure that that was coming across, especially with Mini Maui being a pantomime character. He doesn't have any dialogue, but it's clear in many cases in the film that he's actually having a conversation with Big Maui. We'll get in his magical fish hook here. which sometimes he uses to lean on. There's a scene I animated that I really, really enjoyed where Moana is holding up the heart of Te Fiti, and she says to Maui, "Are you afraid of this?" And he goes, No, I'm not afraid of it. And then Mini Maui cut down to him, and he's biting his nails and running around in panic, and winds up in this expression like, "Haha, gotcha." And that was really fun to do. You know, it was fun to find those moments where they really did have a relationship together. So here you have him, Mini Maui, in all of his snarky glory. And now I'm going to answer some of your questions. So the first question we have is from Mallory Taylor. What's your daily What's your daily workflow process when you're working on a film? Okay, first I come in, then I wake up, then I start doing what I need to do. Often you are working on an animation scene over several days. So I might come in one morning and be in the middle of the scene so I can continue animating. Also, there's lots of meetings to go to because there are so much technical aspects to figure out on the film. I would go to meetings, you know, with the tech guys, with our production designer, with a variety of people where we would figure out the technical pathways to make these 2D shots work. Generally speaking, animation is collaborative and solitary at the same time. Everybody collaborates on the content and the idea and the execution, but actually doing the animation is a pretty solitary process where you're pretty much hunched over the drawing board. You can see this here is a light box, so I can turn that on and see several drawings through it, and that's how we animate in the traditional way. Next question, Nathan Cairns asks, one of these days I'll learn to read. Nathan Cairns asks, did you animate Mini Maui first, or did you wait until the movie was finished to add him? Well, queuing off my previous thoughts, we couldn't just add him later, or we couldn't just animate him first and then they do the CG around that. It all had to be done in tandem. It all had to be done at once, simultaneously. Otherwise, it wasn't going to work. You know, you can animate something independently of what the CG animators are doing, but because they have a relationship, you always have to consider things like, is Big Maui looking in the right direction? Is Mini Maui's eye line working the right way, you know, to make eye contact with Big Maui? And all that sort of stuff. So basically, we had to do the whole process simultaneously. From Brooke Walter, how did Mini Maui contribute to the plot of the movie? Well, it's interesting. You know, originally, he was not a character. John and Ron, being who they are, with a great background in hand-drawn animation with The Little Mermaid and Aladdin and Hercules and all these great films, knew they wanted hand-drawn animation in the film. And they weren't quite sure how it was going to come about. But they did have a notion, maybe we should make the tattoos move. So as the story artists were working, they started to board one of the tattoos as a separate character who acted like his conscience. The first time, this is a piece that actually isn't in the movie, but it got a huge laugh in early story reels, where they dive into the underworld and Big Maui turns around and it looks like Mini Maui has drowned, and he goes, little me, wake up, and he gives him mouth to mouth, and Mini Maui wakes up and goes, and it got a huge laugh. So even though that gag doesn't exist in the movie anymore, What does exist was our takeaway from it was we like this interaction. We like this relationship that the two of them have. And that started to get more and more embellished. And as that became embellished, it became clear that Mini Maui was Big Maui's alter ego. He's his better side. He's the one who pulls him back when he does something nasty to Moana. He's the one who's constantly going, don't do that, and in a humorous way. So, he serves the purpose of being in the movie, first of all, because he's a conscience. He's actually kind of on Moana's side. And second of all, because he's funny. And so I think that's really how he contributes to the plot of the movie. Cindy Huang, you asked, what were the challenges of drawing Mini Maui and other parts with hand-drawn animation? Well, we handled the hand-drawn animation as it's always been handled. We drew it on paper. We had it cleaned up on paper. We used exposure sheets, but the challenges were the interactive challenges. Okay, how do we put those drawings onto CG Maui's body without having them distort? And our tech guys figured that out. How do you make sure that each character leaves a certain amount of space for the other one to react, so the animators will all work together? There's a scene where Big Maui is doing a fist bump with Mini Maui. So we had to predetermine how far over CG Maui's fist had to be, and I'd make a drawing of where Mini Maui's fist would be, and technically we would have to meet in that place for it to look like they're actually fist bumping. There were lots of other challenges as well, but basically it was animated traditionally, as it's always been. Then the trick was, okay, let's put them together. Michaela Milmerstadt asked, what is your favorite Disney character to animate and draw? And my stock answer for that is, it's a bit like saying, who's your favorite child? But frankly, if I had to pick one, it would probably be the genie from Aladdin. That was really my first Disney gig, and I really, really enjoyed animating that character. And of course, Robin Williams was amazing to work with and gave us so much material. Madeline Weber wants to know, how can I create magic in my own animation? Now, depends on what you mean by creating magic, okay? If you're thinking fairy dust, if you're thinking, effects animation that goes poof and twinkle, well, we have people who are actually dedicated to doing just that, just the effects animation. And they are experts in doing that. And they study physics, they study, patterns that certain things make, and they're the ones who basically do the magic pass on our character animation. Now, when you say create magic, you could also mean, how do I make my characters seem like they're alive? And that's a tougher question to answer, because basically, even though you're making a lot of drawings in animation, you're kind of breaking down an acting performance into its component parts. You're thinking, how can I express to an audience what Mini Maui is thinking and feeling at this moment? And you have to do it with how his body is posed, what his facial expression is, the timing. Something that helps the characters keep alive is little extra secondary moments. So if Mini Maui comes to a stop, well, it might take several frames for his hair to settle after that. And that secondary animation gives it a sense of life as well. Madeline Weber wants to know, I just answered Madeline Weber's question. I hope I did anyway. Koizumi asked, do you have any advice for aspiring artist animators? Well, if you want to get into the animation field, first of all, research it and understand that because animation is collaborative, you don't necessarily have to do everything in the process, although it's a great idea if you do know how. But aside from just animating, there are people who are art directors, there are people who create the layouts, the space in which the characters perform, there are designers in CG, there are modelers and riggers, there's all sorts of different areas within the broad scope of animation that you can concentrate on. As far as actually animating is concerned, the best advice I can give is observe and caricature. You know, observation is a huge, huge part of it. Understanding how and why things move the way that they move. Go to the zoo, study how animals move. Go to your local coffee shop and sketch people. You know, understand how body English, you know, helps convey what a person is thinking and feeling, and then caricature that. You're not necessarily trying to ape reality, you're trying to give a heightened reality in animation. So caricature, even on realistic characters, is always a huge part of what we do, because it helps make our work have more clarity. It helps you focus in on the ideas that the character is thinking and feeling. And this last question came from a lot of different people. What's the best way to get into animation? Animation is being offered at lots of college courses around the world. That's certainly a great place to start. Also, in this day and age, it is easier than ever to create your own epic animation film in your own house. There's so much animation software available where you can draw it, scan it, ink it, paint it, add sound. You know, you can be your own, you know, I don't want to say Walt Disney, but okay, you can be your own Walt Disney in your own home, easier than ever. But it's always best to be mentored by somebody who has been in the business, somebody who does understand, you know, the hard parts. Personally, I teach animation courses at USC, and you know, every crop of students that I get are absolutely engaged, and they want to learn this stuff. And really, you got to do your research. First of all, you have to have, you know, good abilities to observe and caricature. Note, I'm not talking about drawing here, because there's going to be a lot of people who want to get into animation, who want to get into the CG side, who don't necessarily have to draw in that particular instance. However, the ability to draw always helps that. And most people who have had, you know, a traditional education in both animation and life drawing find that that really helps them even in their computer animation. So, you know, do your research, find out how to apply, how to send in portfolios to various studios. You know, DisneyAnimation.com has a lot of resources available for you to show how to, you know, get your work in front of people who might be able to get you into, say, an intern program. And basically just keep your eyes and ears open and keep doing it. You know, it's you know, it's like a muscle you don't use. It'll go limp if you don't actually continue using it. So that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to bring home Moana on digital today and Blu-ray tomorrow, March 7th. Thanks. Bye.